What is up, App Nation? It is Steve P. Young, founder of appmasters.com, the place you go when you want action-packed content related to the app business. So today, we've got a phenomenal guest, and this is in collaboration with Pollen.vc. So what Pollen does is they're going to give you early access to your app stores and ad network revenues. They're going to unlock this, but this will be a podcast on the Pollen blog and obviously on the podcast on the App Masters YouTube channel and podcast as well. So without further ado, let me introduce the guest. I've got a super excited to talk to him because you've probably seen a lot of their games, and we're going to talk all about finances and CFO related topics. But without further ado, his name is Peter Hansen-Chambers. He is the CFO at Hutch. You can learn more about Hutch by just going to hutchgames.com. Peter, welcome to the show.
Thanks for inviting me. Nice to be here.
All right, Peter. So I'll give you a softie. Like, what's your role at Hutch? Like, what keeps you up at night? What are you focused on?
Well, there's a lot. Nothing's keeping me up too late at the moment, which is good. We've got quite a bit going on. We've just launched, I think it was our 10th title a bit earlier this year. We did a collaboration, a deal with Formula One. So that's been a big deal for us, getting that out, getting that right. But in terms of what do I do, I mean, primarily looking after the finances, looking after other important functions like HR and legal, and we do a lot of partnerships, so I end up working on a lot of deals with external parties. So yeah, my day tends to be quite varied, but that keeps it interesting.
That's really cool. So F1 Manager, right? That's the game you're referring to?
That's right,
I'll put that in the show notes too if you guys want to check it out. It's F1 Manager. And I want to definitely get into some of these partnership side and how you guys have been able to do that. The first topic I want to really talk about is, a lot of our audience, they're founders. And so they're handling the UA, they're handling the finances, they're handling the HR. When should they start maturing and hire a professional CFO like yourself?
I guess it does depend on the business and the expertise that the founders have. I think for Hutch, it felt like the right time as we went through a financing round. We did a Series A round in 2016. I mean, prior to that, they had some seed investment. But as we, brought in, other investors, I think expectations changed. We needed to, if we were going to grow the business, we needed to have more focus on various functions in the company. And I think that's probably the time when most companies need to look at bringing in somebody that is able to really sort of get into the weeds, looking at process and really owning that space sort of day to day. And I think for us that, it wasn't immediate, but very quickly we sort of moved from being, I think, sort of firefighting, literally just trying to work out who we're paying, when we're paying things, to being much more strategic about different types of finance that we were going to exploit, being more creative for user acquisition, and growing the business ultimately, which was what we were striving to achieve.
Do you have any advice for founders early on who may be just about to raise their Series A as well, to be like, hey, here's some things you should have in order before me, Peter, professional CFO, comes on board and really helps you guys out? Like, are there common mistakes that you see founders make?
I mean, I think it's really important to understand, to have a clear story and be able to communicate where you're trying to take the business. You've got to have a really clear vision and mission. And I think investors, they typically, when they're hearing a lot of pitches and they have short attention spans, they really want to understand what you're trying to do really quickly. And I think, trying to hone that is probably the most important thing. and then obviously it's trying to identify, I guess, your strengths and weaknesses, and not being afraid of that, because if you identify them, then you can address them.
Are there any other milestones that founders should look at? So for Hutch, you guys raised your Series A, you came on board. Are there other milestones besides just raising that Series A that you think, would help other founders be like, okay, I'm at the right revenue milestone to bring on a professional to really help me out? I mean, are there other milestones that you can think of?
I think, there are definitely moments in a business where you start to assess the way that you do things. So, for instance, getting to a position where you can really start pushing UA is really interesting. And I think, we got to a point I think it was towards the end of 2016, where our user acquisition started to go really well, and we started to invest more in that team, not just in terms of user acquisition professionals, but also marketing, artists, people that could create assets, where we could invest in that knowledge and expertise in-house rather than rely on external parties. That has felt like probably the most fundamental moment for the business, I think. Other than that, I guess it's probably case by case and depends on the product.